Hello, everyone. Here we are. Well, Happy New Year is what I should say. Happy New Year, everyone. Because, of course, there was December, there was the holidays if you are celebrating that. And then I think a lot of people are following this calendar. So here we are in 2022. Let's hope everything will be better in this year. I was
Fingers
Brandon.
crossed.
Was this the right intro music? I was missing my do 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 chuk, 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 do do. I always have this dance in backstage, but this is just so.
Well, we can update it for next month.
Thank you. I'm not good with change, you know
we'll,
that. So
we'll
hi
open up a
everyone.
discussion on it.
Yeah, we should do a vote. Who wants the old one back? Well, anyway, hello, everyone, because we are here to talk about the .NET Community Toolkit and a little bit maybe about the Xamarin Community Toolkit, not about the New Year's or funny intro music. And I have been asked to keep it short because there is a lot of ground to cover. So let's do a quick round. Brandon, did you survive the holidays? How are you doing?
Oh, good. We were just chatting before we jumped jumped into the live stream that my brain's still on vacation, and honestly, it feels good. I'm happy. That means I had a good break.
Exactly. Now you need some time to gear up and get back into that work mode. I was only off for 1 week, really a couple of days. And I was talking to someone earlier and I said like 1 week is that's the time that I need to kind of like to cycle down. So after that 1 week, I get to my actual resting. But then I was back at the office. Well, the office here at home. So I basically have been working the whole week anyway. But Sean, I hope you did better than me.
Yeah, I was good. I had a good 2 weeks off, so
Ah,
I
nice.
tried to avoid a computer as much as I could. That was nice.
Great. Pedro, how are you doing? You mentioned earlier it was raining, so there might be a little bit of background noise there.
Yeah, it's raining a lot here today. So yeah, I had a good 1 week off also at the end of the last year because I changed the job, so I could not have 2 weeks off. But yeah,
Ah,
that was
well,
enough to rest.
awesome. Congrats on the new job. That's
Thank you.
amazing. Awesome. Vlad, how's it for you? How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm pretty fine. Have a Christmas tomorrow, so I will have a private holiday tomorrow, so
Ah,
it's
interesting.
amazing for me.
Ah,
Short week
interesting.
after the New Year.
Right. So is that okay? Well, let's go into that another time. I'm very interested. I won't be distracted. Okay, we got this. So all right, we're back and we're going to work on .NET MAUI Community Toolkit and all the awesome stuff that is there because this is the year of .NET MAUI. We're going to launch it this year, Q2 2022. .NET MAUI will be launched and we should be ready as well with all of our stuff. So basically, let's get cracking. I think we got Sean up first. I'm looking at my little notes here. And you were going to tell us a little bit about the Xamarin Community Toolkit first, because there has been a lot of back and forths and a couple of PRs on lowering the UWP target. And to be honest, I'm not really an expert on UWP, so I had no clue what it was all about. But you dove into it, figured out all the things, and now we're good to go with UWP.
So yeah, I mean, we still we still need to make a decision. We've got to the point of understanding what the community has provided. This guy Thomas Stocker has quite helpfully provided multiple PRs to cover multiple different scenarios, and it's making sure that we do something, or we at least let him know that we're not going to do anything. I think, as we've discussed, I think the least risky is to potentially drop the minimum version, rather than, I think an alternative PR was to multi-target, which might bring maybe not necessarily too much risk, but it brings up an extra potential maintenance burden, and whether that actually brings much benefit to us. So the thought being is we will try to. I've done testing on the lowering, and I've not found any issues in terms of this running the sample application that we've got, and it's
Yeah,
whether
so
we
I
feel
think what
comfortable doing that.
All right. So what I think, I don't know. I'm trying to remember what the actual thing was when Popup functionality was added. We bumped kind of like the UWP version, and people were not happy with that because now suddenly they have to follow us while they might have a requirement to have a lower UWP target, right?
Yes, yeah, but there's a little confusion as to, I think we possibly jumped an extra version when the pop-up was done.
Okay.
It's quite difficult. There's quite a bit of historical issues and PRs to walk through.
Mm-hmm.
It does appear that it still seems to behave with the dropping to the one between where it was previously and where we are now, which is what this PR does.
Hmm.
But it's ultimately, I guess, how confident we feel in terms of if we want to commit to doing it.
Yeah, right. Because I think this was done for, I mean, it's done for a reason, probably. And I think one of the reasons was that the pop-up probably brings some kind of functionality. I think it had to do something with transparency, if I remember correctly. That only works in like that version of the UWP target, basically. And that was why it was bumped up. Yeah.
And so what happens if, let's see, if we lower it, and let's say, I'm not suggesting this, but if we go all the way back to the original UWP version, does the code still work and the transparency just doesn't happen? So it looks a little different, or does the code just not build, period, on?
So the code won't build, period, for
never bad.
for the original version.
Gotcha.
And that's where the multi-targeted PR offers conditional compilation. So it doesn't do some of the specific behavior that would force it to not compile. And I don't believe it's just pop-up related now. There's a few other conditional compilation additions in that PR. So I don't think the multi-targeting would necessarily be a sensible one, or at least going back to the original version. But like I said, there's this one version in between. Let me dig out. There's the PRs that are open.
Yeah, I mean that sounds like a good compromise to me.
So it's the 1903, which is the one that's in between. Whereas we're on, I think the minimum at the moment is 2004, and the original was 1809. So we went from 1809 to 2004, and then there was 1903 in the middle that we jumped across.
Yeah.
Now again, as far as I can tell from digging through what happened and why, I don't believe it is an issue to roll back, but that's based off the reading that I've done and the testing I've done based on this sample application.
Well, as a non UWP expert, I think all I can say is if everything looks good for 1903, then and all the unit tests pass, everything still builds. It sounds like we can push forward with that, and then for folks in the community, if there is something that is missing, or if maybe there's a reason why we'd want to go to an earlier version from 1903, we can open up that discussion and chat about that. But yeah, I think it sounds like everything works on 1903. So let's
certainly seems to, yeah.
But also not a UWP expert. Right?
It's a difficult one. I've had limited exposure, but it is part of what I've been looking at. But what does everyone else feel? Because it's obviously a collective decision.
Is 9003 the Windows long-term support version?
Yes, it is on the LTS release. That's got another, I think it's 2025 or 2027. I forget which year, but it's still on long-term support.
Yeah, I think in that case we can lower to this version and it should work.
Mm-hmm. I think technically 1809 might still be covered for a limited period, but it is like I say, it brings in this extra conditional compilation, possible other risks.
Pedro,
Okay.
any disagreements? I'm not sure your UWP expertise either.
No, don't know WP at all.
No, sorry. No, I think at this point maybe we just have to do something and see where we end up, because this has been going on for a long time.
Yeah, I was hoping to get some level of closure on this. So
Yeah,
even if we decided not to do anything, but it would be good to give that answer. So we think we might be in favour of trying to go with 1903, and
see what happens.
see what happens. Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Let's do it. Ship it.
Do it.
Boom.
All right. Ship it. I'll push the button right now. All right. So with that closed, we've made a decision. It's going to happen. Now we are moving on. That was the only Xamarin Community Toolkit thing we had, so that's awesome. Now let's go over to the .NET MAUI Community Toolkit, which is even more awesome. And Pedro is going to introduce us to communitytoolkit.maui.core. What's this thing? What's happening? What's happening to our project, Pedro?
So now we have one more project there. We split up the CS project in two parts, two areas, where we have the core part of the community-toolkit.maui, and we have the community-toolkit.maui, where we will leave the controls and behaviors and everything related to MVVM and the .NET MAUI controls library. And the core project will be a general project where you can have like everything that you need to build a community toolkit for another implementation of the .NET MAUI. For example, the Comet or even the Blazor MAUI version, or maybe another future .NET MAUI UI framework version. So with that, it's more easy to make community toolkits available for another implementations, and also will help us like mimic how the .NET MAUI project is structured. That way will be way easier to move code from .NET MAUI Community Toolkit to the .NET MAUI project itself. And that's it in general.
Very cool. So that's kind of, yeah, that's what you say, right? Like we're going to follow kind of like the pattern that .NET MAUI is doing themselves, with decoupling kind of like the implementation and how we define our controls and our things. And that way you can make it easier to also make an implementation for Comet and that kind of stuff. Is that what you said? Right.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So I think this already happened because this has closed. So I think you did a big reorg of the whole project and everything moved, and it was this big, massive PR. Yeah, well done. Definitely applause. But it's one of those changes where, everyone is kind of blocked until this is done. But thank you so much for doing all the work here. And I think, this might be something that sounds very abstract, maybe as a consumer of this library, but it's definitely something really, really important, especially with that's also kind of like the purpose of the .NET MAUI Community Toolkit, to at some point move over some controls or things to .NET MAUI itself, and everything that we can do now to make that transition easier is something that we definitely need to do. Speaking of all of this, we have been talking behind the scenes, of course, about releasing all of this to you as well, because it's time for a new update, because there's also .NET MAUI Preview 11 that Vlad is going to talk about a little bit as well. So I need to press some buttons and check some things out, which I'm probably going to do tomorrow because it's 9 p.m. here now. So I'm going to look into that tomorrow and hopefully release a version 10 or somewhere early next week if we hit some roadblocks there. But it should be very, very soon. Vlad, because we're having issues right now with building .NET MAUI Preview 11 and using the toolkit.
Yeah, I faced this issue after updating to Preview 11, and what we found that MAUI introduced Preview 11 version with some breaking changes, and our community toolkit was and MAUI Compat version from Xamarin Community Toolkit stopped working and received this build issue because of migration from Preview. They was built with Preview 10, and Preview 11 has like unification in some iOS and Android libraries to .NET 6 migration. And I believe that after updating to Preview 11, which we already have, we just need to release, and this issue should disappear.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean, this is all still in preview, right? The .NET MAUI DLLs are DLLs, and there are some breaking changes to be expected, and this is one of them. So we need to kind of rush and make sure that our stuff now is compatible again with their stuff, so that you can do all the cool stuff. That's kind of like how all the stuff works together. So definitely that is something. Oh, what are you going to say, Brandon? Go ahead.
Oh, just to tie the last thing together with what Pedro was saying about community toolkit.maui.core, that is a new NuGet package as well. And so when we release the next version, hopefully tomorrow, definitely this week, of the community toolkit, everybody will also see a new NuGet package appear, community toolkit.maui.core. So not only do we get to close this issue, so we don't have breaking changes with the preview 10 or preview 11 builds anymore, but we also get to introduce a new NuGet package, which is exciting.
Awesome. More NuGet packages is better, right? That's how it works. So now I think here is actually a question from my fellow Dutchman Jelle Damen, and he's asking why 2 different projects and not just a different namespace. And I think that kind of is answered with like, we can have different implementations for different kind of like, I don't know if Brandon is looking up something. Maybe Brandon, you want to explain a little bit on this?
Sure. Yeah, good question. So the reason we chose to do 2 different projects is, and we kind of alluded to it here in the issue in the PR, that we do plan on and want to have future community toolkits. So there's other app model frameworks like Comet, like Blazor WebView, that also leverage the core Maui namespaces, but have a different way of implementing the UI. So if you ever check out the Microsoft Maui GitHub repo, you'll see it's split up between Microsoft.Maui and Microsoft.Maui.controls. And the controls is actually, that's where our XAML stuff lives. That's where the MVVM lives, what we would call that XAML MVVM app model. But there's also a core library in .NET MAUI that is basically just interfaces and kind of the platform specific stuff. So it's the thing that knows how to take an I button and turn it into a UI button on iOS. And so with what that opens up the possibility is for other app models like Blazor WebView and Comet to create their own way of constructing apps. So Comet uses the MVU model view update architecture with everything's done in C# instead of XAML, and that can still leverage the core Maui libraries. So our plan from the community toolkit side is to both mirror that, and in the future, if we create, or if somebody in the community wants to create a community toolkit.comet, then that can also leverage community toolkit.maui.core. And so we can share code between future toolkits. So this is both aligning the toolkit to match the architecture of Maui. So it makes it easier for us to promote features into Maui. And it's also setting us up for the future where we can have future toolkits leveraging and sharing code as well.
Sounds good. Yeah, basically investing now so that it will make things easier in the future. That's great. Anything else about this?
Let's keep going.
Right. Let's keep going. We're sticking with Vlad, if I'm not mistaken, and we are going over to some discussions, because discussions is where, we plant the seed for new controls, new features, new everythings. And here we have a discussion from Vlad talking about toasts. So what's this all about?
I probably told about it previous months, and it's just a proposal. I finalized the detailed design for it, and we get some votes for it. So our proposal is just to move it to the issues and just implement it. By the way, if you don't remember what is toast, it's just an like snack bar, which is already in Community Toolkit, but without action button. It's just a like small message in the bottom of the screen, which just notify and show you some message.
Right. And we have that right now. And I think the thing we did talk about, I also need to get back up to speed with all the things here. Lachlan's getting hungry. Toast. It's like I said, 9 p.m. here, so I've eaten. I'm done. I'm not getting hungry. But we have it in the Xamarin Community Toolkit right now. And the thing that is something that worry is too big of a word, but that I'm thinking about is with the toast, you have the action button, right? So you have the snack bar that just comes up and displays a little message. Hey, your document is saved. And with the toast, we also have a button, right? So you can also trigger an action.
Other way around.
And the other
snack
way
bar
around.
has the action button.
Yeah.
Okay.
So a snack bar is a toast with an action button.
All right,
Yeah.
cool. But this is all a Android concept, right? So on Android, you can leverage the platform code for this. But the restriction there is that there is only one action button allowed. And I think with Xamarin Community Toolkit, we're now in a situation where we use the Android implementation for Android, which makes sense. But there we're stuck to one button. But on iOS and basically everything that's not Android, we can have multiple buttons. Which is not great because now we have people opening issues with, hey, on Android, we only see one button. What's up? Which is, I get those people. That's kind of confusing. So did we decide something on how we're going to handle that? Are we going to then implement our custom thing in Android as well? Or are we just going to enforce the one button on all the other platforms as well?
Yeah, I think you're talking about snack bar and where we already have implemented it. Yeah.
Right. And we're talking about toast here.
Yeah.
Moving on.
So yeah, I think basically, and correct me if I'm wrong, Vlad, that we've already done the work for toast. I think when I'm pretty sure, Vlad, you did snack bar as well, that when you implemented snack bar, you built it in a way that toast is already there. We just got to have to create the APIs for it. Is that right?
Yeah, it's right for iOS and macOS, and as well as Windows, where we have like a real notification, real implementation. But for Android, it should be different control because of native implementation differences.
Okay. Gotcha. So, I mean, I thumbs up moving forward with the proposal. That
good.
being said, we don't need to vote on it. We only need to vote to approve dang it. I'm still on vacation. Yeah.
Approve proposals. All right, cool.
Any objections, thoughts, Sean, Pedro?
No objections.
Gotchas?
I mean, like you say, if it's already there, we've just got to expose the public API. It seems like I don't want to say easy thing to do, but it seems like it's the groundwork's been laid, so it makes sense to go ahead with it.
Yeah, I'm okay too.
Awesome. Toast is done. Bing. All right, so we have another thing by Vlad, which is add
You were
grid
waiting for
rows.
that, weren't you?
This is I've been coming up with that for the whole day. I should have had a toaster here. That would have been more fun. Which is here described as add grid rows columns. I don't know what that means.
Yeah, I can probably share my screen to show how it works. So this proposal was actually about first migration of uniform grid, which is a control which allows you to display it action like a grid, but the difference is it has the same size for all children there. And this proposal is about moving from base implementation from Xamarin Community Toolkit had only like when you add a new child, it will appear in a row without allowing you to limit the maximum number of columns and rows. And this proposal is about adding this limitation. So it's how it will work probably, where we have with the default implementation, we have like three box view here. If we limit for max columns and max rows to 1, you will see only first item, probably which is expected when you have the same implementation with just a grid. If we have max rows, you will see only one row. And with max columns, you will see like a column, and the item will automatically move to the next line if it's not enough space for them.
Cool. What is this? Isn't this what also kind of like the flex layout is supposed to do?
I think yes. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. What are the pros for uniform grid over flex layout then?
I would say the performance, because flex layout does a lot of calculations because it's more robust layout, and this one is very a simple one. So I would say like if the user just want a wrap view, they should use uniform grid instead of flex layout.
But this also needs some calculation, right? It needs to know if you are going to do just one column, and well, if you have multiple columns. So the last example has multiple columns, but limited to one. But you have multiple rows, so it will kind of wrap all the things to that one column, right? So it would still do some calculations for that.
Yeah, but the point is that the flex layout, since we have more properties, more way to put the children's inside it, like you can do a row, a column, space between, space evening. So that is more complex than us, because we are just saying, okay, every children will have the same size, and you can split that in X numbers of columns and rows. So like will be just a piece of that calculation that flex layout does, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, grid definitely have better performance than layout. Probably even now some layouts are obsolete in MAUI, if I'm not mistaken, but grid is here, definitely.
Grid is here to stay. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I need to look into this one, I guess, to say something more useful here. I mean, I would, if this is gonna kind of like duplicate what flex layout is doing, then I don't know.
Yeah. Probably it's just first idea was about uniform grid, where it automatically calculates the size of the first item and then apply it to all other items. I'm not sure if flex layout do it for us.
That might be.
So it's just an enhancement of uniform grid with limitation of columns and rows.
Right.
But the control itself remains uniform grid.
So uniform grid is already in .NET MAUI Community Toolkit as well? We already
not
did that?
yet.
No,
Okay.
it's champion. But it's
Vlad's
not
opened the PR for it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I remember last time, it's been a while since I looked at it. We were chatting, Vlad, about kind of re-architecting, renaming it a little bit, because right now the PR has a uniform grid inheriting from grid, but we don't really use any of the grid stuff. So like if somebody tries to set the or like add children to it or set columns and rows and stuff like that, uniform grid just ignores that. And so we were chatting about just making it its own layout and trying to come up with new names for it. But that was all for the break. But I'd say, at least for the purpose of this discussion, Vlad, this discussion's, I think, purely talking about max rows and columns for uniform grid. Would we add that to the let's say assuming we go forward with uniform grid, or whatever we name it in the future, would we just add max rows and columns into that PR? Or would you prefer to finish up the uniform grid PR, then do another PR adding max rows and columns later?
I'm okay with adding max rows and max columns because it's pretty simple implementation, I believe.
Okay. I think that makes sense.
Yep.
Okay. So I think the action item for this one is, let's here, I'll share this link in our chat as well. Yeah, let's check out this PR and let's double check that we're not duplicating much or too much from Flex Layout. Because the only concern I have is once we merge the PR and once uniform grid or auto space layout, I don't know what we're going to call it. Once that's merged, we have to own it. We have to maintain it forever. So if we decide it does duplicate Flex Layout, then maybe we don't, so that we can lower the maintenance cost. But to be honest, I've never used Flex Layout, so I can't speak to it at all.
I just know what it does, but that's about it.
Yeah, probably you haven't implemented gallery, where
No.
you usually have a lot of items automatically moved from one row to another.
I don't build apps. I just build the tools to do it. No, I'm kidding. All right, so yeah, that sounds like a like the action item for this. And then if we decide to move forward with that one, I guess we could easily add this functionality in there as well. So we're going to push this a little bit back. People in the chat, people watching, feel free to join in the conversation, of course, here in the chat, or maybe even better in the issues that we're linking here, because that will keep it centralized and we will see all the things in context right there. So let us know what your thoughts are on any of the things that we are discussing here today. Vlad, we're going to go to your last item for now, which is the drawing view, which I absolutely love because the drawing view is awesome. You can doodle things, you can do signatures, because the signature pad from way back when in Examiner Forms was nice, but not great. And now with drawing view, we can do all those things and even more. So I think this is the proposal.
Yeah, this proposal is just migration of a drawing view from Xamarin Community Toolkit to MAUI Community Toolkit. This is a new control which allows you to draw multiple lines, clear and clear all of them, get some image stream from what you drawn, and that's pretty much it. If you're familiar with this control in Xamarin Community Toolkit, it should be pretty much the same. The only question maybe about it, should it be in MAUI Community Toolkit? Because Microsoft MAUI graphics already have a similar canvas where you can draw a lot of like predefined controls like rectangle or any controls there. So should it be in MAUI Community Toolkit?
Yeah.
Who knows? Who knows best about what already exists?
Probably it was announced yesterday.
Gerald? What do we have in
I should know.
graphics?
I should know. I don't know, to be honest. But do we also? I mean, we have all the stuff to do it kind of like programmatically, right? To draw all the things. But do we? I mean, how hard is it then to actually, because that is what I envision this doing, right? That someone puts down their cursor or their finger and starts drawing things. Even, I mean, the most in enterprises, the most top of mind use case would be a signature pad, because you need to do a signature thingy. I don't know how, but that's something that we can investigate, maybe how hard that would be to do that with MAUI graphics code only, basically. Because if that is just 2 lines or whatever, then I don't know if this brings that much value, and even is duplicating stuff. Or if we can leverage whatever is in Microsoft.maui.graphics, and we can make it easier to kind of like achieve that goal, to have a drawing view that you can draw upon with user interaction. I think that's kind of like the distinction here. I don't think Microsoft.maui.graphics has something built in that will allow you to draw with user interaction. Basically, it will allow you to draw things in code, but not with like user input. And it's possible, sure, but you'll have to do extra work. And with this, it's just drop in drawing view, and boom, you can do it.
Yeah, I agree. I'd say I too love this control. It's because it's not easy to implement as developers, but there's a lot of apps out there that can leverage this. Anything from signature pads or. But anyways, I would love to add this to Maui as long as we're not duplicating anything that already exists. But that being said, I've never looked at Microsoft.maui.graphics, to be honest.
Pedro is linking something in our behind the scenes chat with a pull request that's already merged, which is called what is it called? I just clicked it. Graphics view.
Oh.
Which seems to do this as well. So it might be worth investigating what is going on here, and then maybe skip it altogether.
Okay, noted. I'll add that as a comment down to our proposal for drag view then, so we don't forget about it.
All right. So while Brandon is doing that, Brandon is also going to talk about a bottom sheet.
Yeah. So we've talked about toasts, we've talked about snack bars. Bottom sheet is a lot like that. Also in a similar vein as Popup, and I would say that this is kind of another cool tool we can add that again is slightly different from Toast, from Popup, from Snack Bar, that hopefully can leverage stuff from those same libraries. But wanted to bring this discussion to the stand-up to see, what do you guys think? Are we going crazy adding more things that appear from the bottom of the screen? Or would this be something worthwhile? Maybe if we can share a lot of code, that meaning this wouldn't be such a huge investment, that we could do this? Or is it too similar? What do you guys think?
I guess as a consumer, it would be quite nice. I've had to implement something similar in multiple apps, so actually, on that side, it would be good. Do we think we could reshare or share much of the code based on the other implementations we've done, Snack Bar and Toast?
I remember that we have on the NET MAUI Community Toolkit a control called side menu, but we can attach that to appears left to right, right to left, bottom, like in all areas of the device. So maybe we can look at the code and see if we can support like views inside there and make that happen. Because it's already there. Maybe just need to change the name and change some stuffs, and don't need to use the Popup or Snack Bar implementation for that. Since it's just like a shared control, I believe. Oh no,
Yeah.
is a handle. Let me
apart from how we would do the implementation, I think this is definitely something that a lot of people would want because it's also a pretty common pattern in apps. I was looking at the .NET MAUI, so the regular .NET MAUI community stand-up a little earlier in the YouTube app, and then the chat at the bottom, maybe you're doing the same thing, at least on iOS. It's also kind of like a bottom sheet, right? You can drag it a little bit up to make it full screen, and then you can see all the things and respond to that, or you can drag it halfway down, and you will see half the video, half the chat. And that's kind of like what you see in this animation as well. You can, I don't know exactly what this all implements, but you can drag it down all the way, or maybe to some position. So that's really cool. And anything we can make easier for our consumers to do that would be great. The implementation, that is something that we need to look at if we have something already, or if we can get this person to maybe contribute to us, or I don't know.
Yeah, Verkin, if you have the time, hopefully I pronounced that correctly. Jump into the discussion. Let us know what you think. I think it sounds like I like Pedro's idea of maybe making this, like, instead of just calling it bottom sheet, like fly-in sheet, and we can leverage code from the, I already forgot what it's called, the side menu fly-in.
Yeah, side menu view, something like that.
Yeah, maybe we could have this fly in from any side we want. But okay, so I'll make a comment on this discussion saying that we'll want to look into how it would leverage existing code. I think hopefully it can use existing code. If it's not going to, then we'll probably want to have another chat about it before we promote it, just because, again, more stuff for us to or more code for us to maintain also means more opportunities for bugs. So sounds good. I'll leave a comment in the discussion, and we'll keep chugging along with it.
All right, great. And in the category of controls that I absolutely love, here we have a 404 page. That's weird.
That's my fault.
But I was going to talk about camera view. That's one that I absolutely love. And like Vikram just noted, stuff like this is what devs expect to find in a mobile framework. That's definitely also true for the camera view. So that is also one that I would love to have in the .NET MAUI Community Toolkit, and at some point also move up, hopefully, to .NET MAUI itself. But Pedro, what's going on with the camera view?
Oh, it is the 206, the final number of the discussion.
Oh,
and yeah, that one. Another one is about a feature, I believe. So let's talk about camera view. Actually, today I have to say that I don't like too much how the camera view is implemented, mostly for Android part, because it's really hard to make that works, because camera 2 API is not that easy to make a generic code for everyone uses, because Android devices has a lot of different cameras, different resolutions, and even if you search for like a Kotlin or Java blog about the camera 2 API, you will see that it's really hard to make that work properly. So my idea here is we drop a lot of features from the camera view. I needed to search through those features like to map, and we started to implementing on the MAUI Community Toolkit just a few of those features, and also migrate our camera view implementation for Android to use the Camera X API. That is way easier to management and to work with. That is way better. So with that idea, we can have more stability on the control, because we will have just a few codes, and we will receive a lot of feedbacks from the users. And when we feel comfortable about the quality of that set of features, you can bring more features from XCT for MCT as well. So it's like in a cadence mode. If a lot of people use that during the preview versions, maybe we can have a full camera view at the GA date, or we can have that during this year as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like I said, I wasn't joking. The camera view is definitely something that I would like to see. I tried to do some work on it, but like you said, the Android APIs, it's on the Android side, it's called Camera 2. Man, that stuff, that's rocket science, really. And kind of the problem is we want to move to Camera X, which is like the new version on the Android side, which is much easier. But I think it's still officially in beta, right? But I think it has been for years, like with a lot of Google products. So I think at this point we just have to jump on it, see if it works, if it works for what we were trying to do with it, because else we'll just be stuck with in between. Kind of like for iOS, it's pretty straightforward. It's good to do, but for Android, yeah, and that's I think what has been holding us back for the most part with the camera view here. So it would be great to just move forward with that. And again, like something we mentioned earlier, just do it and see where we land. I mean, we shouldn't take risks on all sides here, but this is definitely one that I think we should check out.
I agree. Yeah, I think in the words of Virkin21, I would expect that we'd have a camera control. But yeah, easier said than done, right? So
yeah,
I think
absolutely.
this is something we should push forward with and prioritize before the release in a couple months of the first stable.
Yep. All right.
So,
I see that we already. Yeah, Brandon, what did you want to say about this?
I would just follow up. And Pedro, are you comfortable leading the charge on this? I know it's going to be a lot. So,
Yeah, I'm okay. I just need to finish the pop-up implementation for Handler. I give a pause on that because of the P11 delay. So now that I have everything set up, I will move back to that pop-up handler implementation, and I can take a look on the camera view right after. I
Cool.
believe that will not be too hard to. On iOS and WinUI will not be too hard. The Android one will be fun.
it'll be fine. Thanks, Pedro.
Someday it'll be fine. Okay, so we have 10 minutes left, and I see there is a lot still on my notes, but let's just move on to the next one, which is Vlad talking about a directory picker.
Yeah, it's a feature which was proposed, and it's actually the same as we have file picker, but allow us to choose the directory extent of file. For example, when you save something to the specific folder, when you choose it, or you want to open and see the content of the folder, you just choose this folder and you browse the content of it.
So my first thought with this is I know nothing about this other than is this a concept in like Android and iOS? I mean, this is very much a concept on Windows or macOS,
Well,
but
I know it's in Windows. So when you it called open file dialog, open dialog, if I'm not mistaken, and I'm not sure if it's available in Android and iOS, but actually in iOS it's pretty difficult to choose a folder because it has like protected file system. But in Android, I think it should be available.
yeah, well, yes and no, because I'm more of an iOS person anyway. But so on iOS, you nowadays have the folders app. So I think you should be able to do something with that, which is not very. It's not like going into your C drive and selecting a folder or something like that. But I think there's something you can do these days. And on Android, which is typically a little bit more open, but I think Android is kind of where iOS is started like really locked down and now opening up APIs. Android is kind of like the other way around. They had everything open and now they're closing down. And I think with like recent Android versions, you also have like the scoped storage, or I don't know. They're doing things with storage as well, I think. So it would be definitely interesting to see. Like I said, I definitely know this from a desktop perspective, but I would very much be interested in A, scenarios where you would use this for on mobile devices, and B, if that is even possible. So I would yeah. Oh, go ahead, Vlad. Sorry.
Yeah, assume that you download some file, some picture from somewhere, and you want to save it. You usually choose like folder, not the file.
Yeah, I think it does make sense. Yeah, like Gerald, how you mentioned the Files app on iOS lets you save it to a folder. So I think that's where definitely something we could leverage for this, at least on iOS. My question is, what's the best way to implement it? Because it sounds like we can leverage stuff from MAUI Essentials. So do we say maybe use a subclass for MAUI Essentials? I don't know, or like, do we add a like extension method to MAUI Essentials, or Vlad, were you thinking of this being something that can't do that, or we would have to rewrite it from scratch?
Yeah, ideally it should be in MAUI Essentials, yeah, as you mentioned, but we not sure if it should be in Community Toolkit at all. But yeah, but it's better to put it to the MAUI Essentials actually, because we have their file picker, and directory picker should be also close to it.
Yeah, exactly. That kind of makes sense because they have the file picker already. So either they should move the file picker to us, or which is not likely to happen, because else we're going to have this dependency on .NET MAUI Essentials, which is also not great. And this is very close to kind of like the file picker. I mean, it could be like literally, although the name would be a little bit funny, file picker, but it could literally be one property on the file picker to say, hey, I want to pick a file or a directory, right?
I think we already depends on MAUI Essentials just because we depends on MAUI, and MAUI Essentials is part of it. So we already have all stuff from MAUI Essentials. I just don't know what is
I'm
the
looking
best.
that up right now.
Might be.
Yeah, I don't know what is the best place to put this. Like, is it? It's not a control. It's something like.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know where to put it in the Community Toolkit library.
And also like that was kind of like also the cutoff point for Xamarin Essentials, right? Like Xamarin Essentials is not specifically for Xamarin Forms, right? It also works on Xamarin.Android or Xamarin.iOS. So that I can totally see this API also being used on .NET for iOS, which is the new version of Xamarin.iOS for .NET 6. Basically, you can still do your native apps that way. I'm not sure actually if you can still use Essentials with that. I would expect it to, but not sure. But anyway, I think this needs more thought on how and why and where.
Sounds good. I'll add those notes to the discussion right now.
Boom. And I think we have only a couple of minutes left. Actually, it's my turn, but maybe I will. Sean, do you feel comfortable with talking about the branching model in a couple of minutes?
I could try. Yes, so I mean, this came about as I think a PR that was opened a while ago was looking at providing a PR template, so we could make it easier for people to understand what it is that they need to be doing when they're submitting a PR. And I noticed we're pointing people at main in terms of where they want to send their PR. And that just raised the question that we have a developer branch on Xamarin Community Toolkit and whether we want one on the MAUI Toolkit. I think from discussions we've had via comments, it's probably looking like we won't bother with a developer branch, given that it adds an extra bit of complexity, and we can probably work without the need for it. I mean, typically you have GitHub Flow, which doesn't have the developer branches. You're always committing a full set of functionality. It's considered stable. It goes into main, and at that point, you technically should release it. You don't have to. So I guess we don't technically fit that we do release that model, but I think the rest typically fits with what we're doing. And then certainly around how proposals are now working, that they're quite structured in terms of what gets discussed before we even go ahead with them, and the requirements in terms of what's going to be complete in order for them to actually be merged. So I think that means that main should be in a much better state. Not that main's in a bad state in terms of XCT, but you don't necessarily need the protection of a developer branch around that. I don't know what anyone else thinks. Does anyone have any strong opinions of branching?
I'll chime in because I have experience with both, and I've found pros and cons with both. When it comes to Git, we'll say Git flow, where we would have a develop branch like we do on the Xamarin Community Toolkit, one of the biggest problems I see is when we get contributions, PRs might be targeting the main branch instead of the develop branch.
That's precisely what I did when I started.
and yeah, as much as we try to include that in the PR template and help folks, it's gonna happen, and that's fine. But the trouble comes in when you retarget from main to develop, then sometimes you have to rewrite your entire PR.
Yeah. I mean, you can manage that kind of. You can have you could have develop as the default branch rather than main, and that would actually solve that problem for people starting out.
Yeah, so that's the big con or downside I have with Git flow. With GitHub flow, the biggest downside I've seen is if we want to just do a hotfix, like let's say, like right now, for example, we have preview version 3 on NuGet, and the main branch of Maui Community Toolkit is already well ahead. Like we're gonna release preview 4 soon. But what if there was a hotfix we needed to deploy to preview 3? Well, what you can do with GitHub flow is create a branch from that release tag. So GitHub keeps track of all your releases. We can create a branch from that to add in the hotfix. And then we do a cherry pick commit where we take that commit from that branch and then bring that to main. So there's a little extra step to do hot fixes. But in my opinion, I like that better. Even because, I mean, how many times does that happen? Not too often, hopefully. So, I mean, I don't
So
have
far
too
we
strong
haven't had
opinions,
any-
but pros and cons of both. Yeah, like it's there's no perfect solution is probably the answer.
No. I guess
we'll
I'm
have to
more.
live with.
Sorry.
I should say there's no perfect solution. We just have to live with whatever we choose, and then blame Sean for it a year from now.
Well, I mean, GitHub flow is meant to be the simpler of the model because you're dealing
Yeah.
with fewer branches and less merging. So that's probably a good starting point. And you can shift models. You just have to.
Yeah,
shift.
absolutely. And you know, we do. I mean, our team is infinite because the whole community is our team. But you know, our little core team is not that big, right? So it's kind of overseeable. And I think then we should maybe not cause too much overhead with like too many branches and things. And I definitely, for the people watching, would definitely be interested in your opinion as well from like the community contributor perspective. Like, how do you see things? How can we make life easier for you? Because you know we want your contribution. So anything we can do to make that easier is something that we should definitely consider. For now, I'm more leaning toward indeed like the GitHub flow. Although we kind of like have the Git flow on the Xamarin Community Toolkit. Technically, we for the last few releases we're just following the GitHub flow mostly, where we just have the main branch and put it all in there. So yeah, I'm leaning more towards that as kind of like a starting point, and then whenever we see that it's not enough for whatever reason, that we then reevaluate and see what we can come up with then.
Yeah, with GitHub Flow we release often because for each merge we assume that we release something new, but with it we also less stable because something merged to main and it may have some issues or impact on other stuff which is implemented. So Git flow protect us from it by having a like develop branch, but with GitHub flow, I think it's better suitable for us just because we do not have like fix for the previous version. Yeah.
But what we have now, and we really have to kind of round off here, is because we're going overtime. But what we have now is a lot more unit tests and a lot more grip on like the quality before the code going in. So hopefully that would kind of like stop bad things of going into the main branch entirely, where it's now, you know, especially at the beginning, we were enthusiastic and we liked all the things, and we just merged and got all the things in for various reasons. But now I think we're we have this possibility of going back, taking a step back, and doing things properly, putting in these gates where we get a grip on quality. And I don't think that necessarily hinges on everything being in the main branch.
All right. Well, I'd say for now, community,
Yeah.
let us know what you think. Please do chime in. Like Gerald was saying, ultimately, we should probably go with what's easiest for our community developers. Even if that means an extra step for us on our side as maintainers, well, we'll say so be it. I'd personally rather have more community contributions and make that frictionless as possible. But yeah, I think we're also right with our proposal flow. Everything we discuss ahead of time, especially with our unit testing and our build pipelines, that we should be able to structure everything so we don't necessarily need the Git flow, but who knows? We'll find out a year from now, and when we replay this video and be like, oh, we were so naive. But
we should do that. We should do kind of like watching parties of our old episodes, and then well, anyway, so this is all the time we got. We got a lot more that we wanted to talk about, but I guess we'll just move that to next month, and you'll have to wait and come watch us again by then. So thank you so much for joining us. Please don't forget to subscribe to this channel so you'll be notified of a new .NET MAUI Community Stand-Up coming up, or the regular .NET MAUI Community Toolkit to stand up. Too many terms here. Time to go to bed, and I'll see you next month. Thanks, everyone.